How are you doing?
Good, Eric, how are you?
Wow.
Hey, April, is this the same copy as we got by mail today?
Did I send out on Friday?
Yeah.
Copy. I'll take it afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, they ran out of water. You know, I don't know if he's going to boot some off of somebody. Hey, there might be one outside, you want me to go get one? Cause I'm gonna get one. Are we about ready to start?
Yeah.
Are we?
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, how are you? Was that triad bill, was that the update to last year? You know that triad bill was that from the update? Bill? Was that triad bill, was that from the update of last year?
That's this year's.
This year's the one?
Yeah, or it's just not here.
All right, right.
Board members, are you ready?
Sure, yes.
Director and deputy director, are you ready?
Yes, Madam Chair.
And attorneys, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'd like to call the Montgomery County Board of Elections meeting this Monday, February the 14th, 2022 to order. May we please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
At this time, I would like to call upon Member Hatcher for a motion.
Yes, I'd like to move that we amend the agenda to include an executive session to discuss a contract and a legal matter. And that session would include our, both members of our legal counsel, as well as the deputy and director and our chief administrator and chief of staff.
I'd like to second that motion.
It's been properly moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. May we have a motion to approve the December 30th, 2021 board meeting minutes?
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the meeting minutes from December 30, 2021.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. May we have a motion to approve the current bills?
Your Honor, I have filed an injunction to stop this meeting by not publicly publishing an agenda with any bills, names, etc. And I would suggest that you do not proceed.
Mr. Ezerati, you are out of order.
Okay, fine.
I move we approve the bills as presented.
I would second that motion.
Been properly moved and second to approve the bills as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Director Reisenbach?
Yes, Madam Chair, we are first going to start with the Democratic Central Committee, Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee list. These are, the list is that you're being handed and presented, are the individuals that are,
Thanks, sir.
appear to be valid. And it's a full list that we've had the opportunity, my staff has had the opportunity to review each and every one of those, their petitions, reviewed the signatures through our system, and have indicated that all of those that, as a block that you are having seen, and that is on your one form, it is, I believe, 9 pages, starting with Butler Township A, going all the way through West Carrollton D. Packet, all of those names, and at the top it says 2022 Democratic Central Committee candidates appears to be valid. There's a complete list of all of those names. We would ask that the board, as you can go through each one of those, and we'll wait, but we, I'm very confident with our team that those all appear to be valid and are valid. We would ask you to approve them, certify them for the primary election that is currently scheduled for May 3rd, 2022.
These ones we looked at before.
No, we wouldn't have seen these.
Mr. Director, for the record, the ballots in the box here are all those and only those that are included in that list that was previously indicated as Democratic Central Committee of Candidates appears valid. Is that correct?
That is correct. All of those that are in that box, as well as that's on the list, are identical, and that's what's been presented to you to appear to be valid. And I can just indicate that likewise, when we've done this, and we changed up the procedure in May and November, because I wanted to be accurate and clear as to what petitions we were dealing with. We have always broken out when we have questions or they're gonna be invalid, so we keep them separate. So if there are any challenges or questions, we are quite clear on which ones you are voting on and which ones the public can understand.
Thank you. Mr. Blaine, Member Blaine?
I would move to certify the candidates in this list to the ballot.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the 2022 Democrat Central Committee candidates that appear valid for approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries.
Separated in presentation.
So with regards to this next set, that is the second, we've broken these down so that they're all in like issues. But the first set is, and it appears to be questionable. It is basically what had happened is they did not fill out the area in which is called the petition for candidacy, which is the second paragraph. When you get to see the actual ballots, there's a first paragraph in which they fill out as a declaration of candidacy, which has their name, address, the party that they're going for. There is after that, they sign it, but then there is a second paragraph which is called the petition for candidate. In one particular one, and I'll read Rachel Morrell, the way she printed it off, did not attach that, so it was not filled out. Donna Griffith did not have it filled out. Martha Clark did not have it filled out. And Demetria Thompson did not have it filled out. And Ronald Eugene Hunter Sr. did not have that filled out.
Excuse me, Director, is that because these folks printed theirs off of the?
One particular, yes, in one particular one is they printed it off and they did not resize it appropriately for their printer. The other ones just didn't fill it out. But based on prior rulings of this board, based on a decision in -18-03, we are recommending that approval of these that are valid. Missing that portion of the petition does not create any concerns and or make it automatically invalid. And the board, as I previously said in 2018, approved petitions like this as valid.
Even those who have election date
Okay.
missing?
And these are
because-
not election date. This is only with regards to the petition for candidacy missing.
And they're otherwise in order.
Otherwise, everything else is in order, and the signatures were reviewed and appropriate. So they have met all the other criteria. In this particular 5, they just did not sign nor fill out the petition part, the petition for candidacy. Not the declaration, but the petition for candidacy. It was a repeat of the prior paragraph.
Mr. Director, is there any precedence on this?
Yes, in 2018, 2018-03, it made that same ruling. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hibner.
Yeah, remember up on the, in 2018, actually the February 13th meeting of 2018, the board was faced with a similar situation, and since the declaration of candidacy is on the same page, the board ruled that the petitions would be valid and that no voter would have been misled or without appropriate information to sign that petition. The board then made the same ruling on 8/15/2019, and then several times since then.
Thank you.
Ralston? Maybe Ralston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Who's the new one there?
This is Clark.
So we're gonna divide this into 2 sections. Okay. And one section will be those that the petitions that appeared questionable by the candidate, section blank missing. And there's
Correct.
5 of those.
Yes, those 5 of those that you currently have.
Yes, okay,
I'll get to the other ones in a minute.
all right.
A lot of moving parts this week.
On an extraordinary timeline.
On an extraordinary timeline. An unprecedented time. While you're contemplating those, board members, I'd just like to let you know that our staff worked incredibly hard to make sure that people understood, especially for Central Committee, not only if they were printing them at home that they needed to be resized, but also that it was important to talk to our staff. In many cases, candidates were repeatedly asked to consider the completed nature of their petitions. And it was communicated to potential candidates for Central Committee multiple times in multiple media to make sure that they reformatted their printers to avoid this error.
We also have until February 22nd to file for a write-in for those that, now, can,
Well,
No.
well, for the caveat being, of course, the sore loser clause. So if you should rule somebody's petition invalid today, they would not be eligible to run as a write-in. You can only run as a write-in if you have withdrawn your petitions prior to the board ruling on your petitions. So anybody who may be deemed invalid today will not be eligible to run as a write-in candidate.
Thank you for that clarification.
Madam Chair, having reviewed the petitions for Donna Griffith, Martha Clark, Dormitri Thompson, Ronald Hunter, and
Morel.
is it Rachel Morel?
Yes.
I would move that we certify the candidates to the ballot.
I second.
Been properly moved and second to approve those candidates as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Director?
Yes, this is another 5 that we have under the questionable report. It is Wesley Hartshorn, Terry Jo Barnes, Peyton Manger, Angela LeBlanc, and David Sparks. These individuals, what's consistent in these petitions is that they failed to fill out the election date in that form, or in their petition. And as the prior set, we are recommending that the board approve those. There is a decision in 2018, 18-05, that this board had prior precedent in indicating that is a valid, you guys previously approved that. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hittner on that particular issue.
Thank you. Yeah, the board, as Director Resbeck said, 1805, that just because the date is missing, voters are not I'm sorry, I'm looking on the wrong line here. Yeah, just because the date is missing, voters are not misled. It goes back to actually Board Decision 1801, which is for any office, not just Central Committee. At the time, Assistant Prosecutor Jagilski noted that the Supreme Court case law is generally no date equal invalid, but it does give boards the leeway to decide if there was substantial compliance or not, or if a voter would determine or can determine what the person is running for and for what election, based on what they did have on there, even if they were missing that date.
In other words, the expansion of time in between elections is so long that it's assumed that it's in this cycle, correct?
I believe that would be true, but
Yeah,
I'd
okay.
turn it over to legal counsel for anything further.
Well, the issue is whether or not the voter, at the end of the day, understands what the person is running for, usually, and that would be what seat it is and when it is occurring. However, we see no reason to deviate from the precedent as set by this board and has been consistently applied
Okay.
since 18.
And if I have not said it, we do recommend that that set that you have in front of you be certified to the currently scheduled May primary.
Ms. Greathouse?
I have that later.
Okay.
Elections for redistricting.
Question here
Yes,
is,
sir.
petition missing.
Hmm?
The date's still,
We must have misclassified that one.
so,
That-
that's the block.
Yes. But
That's
that's,
it.
no, that was an error on our, that's a clerical error.
Good. I'll set that aside.
Okay.
I'll make sure I wasn't misreading.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Good pickup.
Thanks.
Misclassified.
Madam Chair, have reviewed these petitions. There's two motions that I'd like to make. The first being with regard to the petition for Angela Leblanc. We were just discussing this petition as potentially missing the election date. However, review of the petition looks like that is not the case. Ms. Leblanc does have the election date. However, her petition for candidacy is uncompleted, as were similar to the last batch. I'll send that back around.
She had a duel.
So while there is an election date, it's a petition. So with that in mind, I would move on Ms. LeBlanc to certify Ms. LeBlanc's petition, her candidacy to the ballot.
And just to clarify, this petition includes both categories of questionability.
My review of it only includes one question.
Only one, okay.
Eligibility, and that is whether or not the petition for candidacy section was blank and or missing,
I see.
rather than the election date. As the election date has been completed on her petition, it is the petition for candidate section that in itself is blank. So it should have been included in the last batch.
I gotcha.
It
Thank you.
appears when we paper clipped them.
They were-
It was misclassified.
It was a misclick. Oh, then I second.
It's been properly moved in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Carry on, Member Blaine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, I would move that the petitions of candidates Hartshorn, Barnes, Manger, and Sparks be certified to the ballot for the May election.
I second.
Been properly moved in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries.
Sorry. Thank you.
Good job, Eric.
Madam Chair, with regards, we'll move on to those petitions in the Democratic Central Committee races that appear to be invalid. The first set is two. It is Tamika Pettis and Allison Merkel. And with regards to specifically these two, in the declaration of candidacy, they failed to put their address. And so, based on that and a past ruling in 18-04, they would be declared invalid. We recommend that you declare invalid and not certify them to the scheduled May election.
Now, it's my understanding that what you're doing now, we're separating those central committee members that appear to be invalid, and these two you're doing because they have no address? Is that,
Yes, no address in the declaration,
okay. So,
which is a requirement, which
Yeah.
would be a fatal error.
though they have under their, circulator statement, they place their address.
No, and yes, although as a circulator that is, but what's important is in the declaration, that is where the voter is informed as to who they are, who's running, and their address. The circulator is not sometimes is not the individual that is running, so that address would be not able to, lack of a better word, recover that or save that.
Even though their name was there.
Correct.
In the application.
Correct.
This is one of
that-
the things in which the board has less discretion.
That was my next question. Is that something that is based on precedent of the board or based on?
It's precedent of the board as well as, I believe in the
EOM
EOM, it's a
Okay.
fatal error that if you don't list your address, that is failure to notify the individual who may be signing the petition as to who you are, where you're running for. And in particular, I believe the first one, they indicated what precinct they wanted to run for, but they are, if you look at their address, that's even the wrong precinct.
Okay.
So they misidentified their own precinct.
Also, we need the address in order, I'm gonna take them, oh, this is next. We need the address in order to verify that the candidate against their voter registration record, in the absence of that, it's one of the pieces of identifying information we are required to confirm. So that this is one of those places where the EOM is quite clear and there's very little discretion.
Thank you.
Member Blank?
Having reviewed, thank you, Madam Chair, having reviewed the petitions for candidates Pettis and Merkel, I would move to not certify them to the ballot.
A second.
Been properly moved in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Director?
The next 7 that you'll have in front of you are Scott Manny, Michael Walzak, Lawrence DeGuire, Roberta Creever, Daniel Gahard, Michael Gross, and Kenneth Hayes II. These petitions, what is unique about them is that the date of their signing on the declaration of candidacy is after the date, I'm sorry, it is, yes. It is after the date that the individuals who signed the petition, so they got the signatures before they signed their declaration of candidacy, which is an automatic failure. Although we did note, I think there's 2 of them, that there was actually a signature on time, so they actually fail because they do not have the requisite number of signatures, but most of their signatures, if not all of their signatures, fail because they came before the date that they signed their declaration of candidacy.
So there should be 7 of them?
I believe there's 7 of them, if I counted correctly.
And is this similarly specific in the EOM?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
The candidate signature needs to appear on the petition prior to it being distributed to the voters so that the voter knows what they are signing. So if it appears that the signature comes after that, we cannot, with any sense of certainty, know that the voter knew what they were signing. But it is required to be in that order.
And just to note, some of the signatures, some of them are, I understand that they're close in time, but one of them signed it for May 3rd, 2022.
Oh.
And so,
Just check you can't post dates.
Madam Chair, having
Mike's on.
reviewed the motion, or having reviewed the petitions for candidates Manny, Walzak, DeGuare, Griever, Gerhard, Gross, and Haynes Day, I would move to not certify them to the May ballot.
I'll second.
Been properly moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. Director?
Yes, this is the last group of the Democratic Central Committee that appear to be invalid, and we would recommend that they be invalid. It's Joe Lacy, Yusuf Alzine, Charles Taylor, Latanya Simmons, Daniel Lomax, Michelle Hogg, Danielle Heater, and Lorenzo Emmons. Alonzo Emmons. And these are fairly simple, that they failed to have enough signatures, valid signatures to have their petition approved.
Director Resnick, for the record, how many qualifying signatures are required for approval?
For Central Committee?
Yes.
5.
And just to verify, a person cannot sign their own petition.
That is correct.
Well, they can sign their,
They can't sign, well, they can be their own circulator, but they cannot sign their own petition. They can be their own circulators, and thus they are signing part of the petition, but not to be a valid signature to count as the required number in whatever race they have. Yes, and the circulator cannot sign the petition in which they're circulating to verify their own signature.
Correct.
I answered every one of your questions that you were thinking of.
the 2 you wish you had.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't understand that. Ooh, that's one, 5, right? So this one says non-registered. You know what I'm trying to say? So we they have-
Outside the jurisdiction.
Oh, that's-
Mr. Director, a question on the notations on this. On the side of each of these signatures, there's NR, there's JUR, and there's a check, or there's a check mark, it seems. NR is a not registered voter, and
Yes.
JUR is they live outside or reside outside the jurisdiction of that particular candidate.
Correct.
And the check mark would be an approved valid signature, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Very good, Member Blaine.
He can be taught.
Interesting.
And then further clarifying, the jurisdictional questions or rulings, or I should say, identifications made on these petitions is irrespective of the new maps, or does it take into account? How does that question play from our last board meeting that we included?
Yes, let me explain, because it can be part of my other discussion later on. But that jurisdiction that you're talking about, that we are, is in the new precincts that you all voted on December 30th, when we had our team spend countless days, nights, and weekends redrawing the precincts to become in compliance with Ohio statute, as well as directives from the state, directives from the Secretary of State's office. So all of these precincts that you are seeing, they are from how the county looks now. This precinct map has nothing to do with the maps for the districts, for the state House of Representatives or the state Senate. That is completely different. This is just within the county, the precincts that are represented for both of the political parties.
And because the new precinct maps were available
Yes.
since prior to these signatures being collected, the expectation would be that they
Yes.
would choose in jurisdiction.
Yes, what we did a painstaking, our team went and they trained themselves, but basically was able to, in the GIS system, create each of the precinct maps, as well as we printed up walking lists for people that were in that jurisdiction. And I believe many of the individuals that came down to request petition, our team gave them a picture of their precinct along with names and walking lists. If they specifically made that request, we provided them to everybody that requested. Any public records requests, I know we had a number of public records requests. One of them wanted every precinct in the county. Did take us a couple days in the sense of how we were doing it, but I think it was within, they asked on a Thursday or Friday. I think by that Monday or Tuesday, we had provided that particular individual a walking list for every jurisdiction, as well as the map, where you could see the outside boundaries. And in fact, I will tell you, what our team did, and this is not to pick on the county auditor's office, but our team was able to provide a better looking map, so you could actually see the street names, not perfectly, but you could see the boundaries much better than the old maps. So we were quite proud of our team doing that. And everyone had access. You also had access online that you could look those up. To get the walking list, because we were still at that point, we were waiting on approval from the Secretary of State on the census waiver. We were still in our test environment, and that's why you couldn't online get a walking list because it was still in our test environment, but we made sure, I know we sent out a number of things, we answered every question we could, and everybody, I think, was very happy with what we provided them, and was able to have that service to everybody that asked.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair, having reviewed the petitions for Lacey, Kenneth Lacey, Alzine, Taylor, Simmons, Lomax, Hogg, Heater, and Edmonds, I would move that those candidates not be certified to the May ballot.
I second.
Been properly moved in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries.
I was just waiting for you to grab those other ones. The next set of petitions are the complete county-wide list. And I'm happy to announce that they all appear to be valid, and I'll go through the list. We have Mary Kate Huffman for the Court of Appeals, District 2, term beginning 2/9/2023. Ronald Lewis, Court of Appeals, 2nd District, term beginning 2/10/2023. Michael Tucker, Court of Appeals, 2nd District, term beginning 2/11/2023. County Commissioners, Renee Bowers, Carolyn Rice, Jordan Wortham. County Auditor, Carl Keith and Carl Cordelis. Judge for Common Pleas Court, beginning January 3rd, 2023, Mary Wiseman. Judge for Common Pleas, unexpired term 7/1/2025. We have Jacqueline Gaines, Bob Hansman, Michelle Henney, Angelina Jackson, Kimberly Melnick, and Tony Shane. For Judge of Common Pleas Juvenile Division, beginning 1/1/2023, Steve Abshire and Julie Bruns. All of those petitions, as we've done with each and every one of the petitions that you've heard today or seen today, we evaluated them and looked at their signatures, and they have all met the necessary criteria, and we would recommend, and appear to be valid, we recommend that you certify them for the scheduled May election in 2022.
This is the first election where judges' parties are placed on the ballot.
Yeah, well, that would be for the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals only. It is not common pleas.
It just appears on our,
It is curious.
Fingers on our.
Well, it's a primary as well. It'll designate in the primary.
That will depend which ballot they show.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So there's, with the bills that passed the House, Senate, and within Senate law, there is no change in the primary practice on the judicial slates, as each judicial candidate is in their own partisan primary. However, that changes for the general election list, correct?
Yes, you, if I understand your question correctly, if you ask for a Republican-specific primary, there'll be certain individuals who have filed petitions for the Republican race. The Democrat will be on if you request a Democrat ballot. In the general election, you will only see the Democrat and Republican designation, the DRR designation, on the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court races and or the Court of Appeal races. It would not appear on the juvenile court race in this particular case or any of our common pleas races.
With that, Madam Chair, having these candidates, I would move to certify the candidates of Judge Huffman, Judge Lewis, Judge Tucker, the candidates for County Commissioner, candidates for County Auditor, that of the Common Pleas Court, Judge Wiseman, the various candidates of the Judge of Common Pleas Court on expired term of 7/1/25, and the Judge of the Common Pleas Court Juvenile Division, term beginning 1/1/23. I would move to certify them for the ballot of the May primary.
I second.
Been properly moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, the motion carries. Director?
Yes, number 6 on your ballot, or number 6 on your agenda is the ballot printing and mailing services, RFP, not the RFP. This would be to approve to outsource. It's a requirement by the Secretary of State. As you guys know, for these elections, we have a company to do our absentee ballots, and so we need approval by the board to outsource that absentee ballot process. So you need
And this is simply a motion to approve doing it, not to approve a particular vendor.
that is correct.
I would therefore move to approve the outsourcing of the printing and mailing of absentee ballots for the May 3rd, 2022 primary election.
I'd second that motion.
Been properly moved in second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. At this time, I would like to have a motion to go into executive session, and we will need a roll call vote.
I would then move that we enter executive session as described earlier for the purposes of discussing the contract matter and the legal matter.
I second that motion.
Roll call vote.
Chairwoman McLean,
Aye.
Member Routsall,
Aye.
Member Hatcher,
Aye.
Member Blank.
Aye.
For members, we've set up our conference room for this. We'll leave the live feed going here in this room. And to the members of the public, we will, when executive session is complete, we will come back.
And then we will continue with the election and redistricting update and other comments. Everybody good? Okay. Member Lane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move to return from executive session and resume the public portion of the February 14th, 2022 meeting of the Montgomery County Board of Elections.
Second.
May we have roll call, Mr. Hibbner?
Yes, Chairwoman McLean.
Aye.
Member Routzon.
Aye.
Member Hatcher.
Aye.
Member Blaine.
Aye. Madam Chair, I would next move to enter contract negotiations by directing the director and staff to do so with Graphic Village for the outsourcing of vote by mail absentee ballots for a period of 2 years.
Second.
Yeah, what? I saw a question mark on your face. Is that?
Yeah, it's just to go into negotiations.
Negotiations,
It's just to go into negotiation.
That's to go to enter negotiations, so.
yes. Okay.
So,
And you?
And I do second.
Okay. It's been properly moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You have one more.
and Madam Chair, I would move to approve the signing of the settlement agreement on behalf of Montgomery County Board of Elections in the case of Mucker v. Fecky.
Mooks.
Mooks v. Fecky?
Be effective.
I'll second.
Been properly moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. At this time, we'd like to have an update on the elections and redistricting update.
Yes, Madam Chair, we're gonna I'll have Deputy Director back me up on this, but I'm gonna try and go through a quick timeline so you guys are aware of where we stand with the election itself and the redistricting. As many as you all know that we, the state of Ohio is in the process of doing a redistricting, not only at the House and Senate level in the state, but also as a congressional redistricting. Maps were drawn. However, in early January, the first set of maps, both the congressional map and the Ohio House and Ohio Senate seats, districts were deemed unconstitutional. The Supreme Court at that point issued, with regards to the House and Senate seats in the state, they were ordered from 10 days from that decision to come up with new maps. With regards to the congressional seat, there's a different process. They have to go to legislature and then within that committee, and then if not, they go to the full committee. And so there's a 30-day and then an extra 30 days in the congressional, so those were moved out. The redistricting committee did meet and met the deadline by the Supreme Court. However, and drew new maps. However, and those particular new maps, Montgomery County did not change from what they had already been redrawn in the previous map that was declared unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court again ruled that unconstitutional. There has not been when I was up at the State House last week, there was a significant move on the congressional maps, noting that the legislature was not going to meet. So then now it has to go to the redistricting committee itself, and they have 30 days. The Supreme Court, with regards to the Ohio and Senate, Ohio representatives and Ohio Senate seats districting, they have until February 17th to come up with new maps. Now, that all being said, that's where we stand on the redistricting. It had no effect with regards to us doing the new precincts. We've been successful at that. I will tell you, and Mr. Aber is here, when we transitioned this past Thursday for our new precincts, we couldn't check we could not check in all of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee seats because we needed to be in our live system. We had always been sitting in a test system. We were waiting on approval because you guys had approved the maps, statutorily correct. We were just waiting on, we had to change some census blocks, split the census blocks, so we needed waivers from the Secretary of State. The team constantly was in contact with the Secretary of State's office to get those done, or get those approvals done, and we answered all their questions. We actually filled out the form, and then when they notified us, they appreciated us filling out the form completely and correctly, but they needed more information in the sense that it wasn't on the form. So I guess we were a test office for that. So we then provided all of the new documents that they wanted in a short time period. We then waited. We finally got all approval last Thursday in working with our vendor Triad. They have been great to work with on this particular issue. They then transitioned our system over as quickly as possible, and since last Thursday, Friday, and today have been working on some very minute changes or things that we had issues with, and some of it would be, I'll give you an example. There's a part of Huber Heights that is considered the city of Dayton, and so even though the zip code is a Huber zip code, it's actually part of the city of Dayton. So the system was having trouble reading that because it's saying it's a Dayton precinct, which it is, but it's got a Huber Heights address. So our team, along with Triad, fixed those those known issues that we were going to have. Which then last Friday we began the process of doing the over 200 Central Committee things, and as you well know, we were working on them even through today to make sure we got that all and we're in compliant with that. Sure, go ahead.
And just to help sort of round out for everybody the understanding of, in order to check a petition, it is a multi-tiered process, and one of the very first things you have to do is enter the petition into the voter registration system to verify that it is an adequate petition, that the person who is running is qualified to run in terms of geography. We could not enter most of the Central Committee petitions because some of those precincts didn't exist, or precincts lines had moved. So if I was previously in Oakwood E, but now I'm in Oakwood F, my petition could not be entered because my address is not correct and I'd be automatically kicked out of the system. So until we updated the voter registration system with the new precinct data, they couldn't even put in the petitions, much less start checking the signatures. And so I just want to clarify, we don't deal with onions at the Board of Elections, we deal with braids of onions. Everything is layered and interconnected. And so that was why we needed the census waiver blocks the census block waivers from the Secretary of State's office so that we could get the statewide precinct numbering so that they could make the changes for the new precincts in the voter registration system, so they could roll the new lines over into the live voter registration system so that they could enter the petitions so that the signatures could be checked. It is incredibly complex, and our staff is amazing. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Absolutely, that's a great explanation of how we got to where we are. They have continued to perform at an exceptional level under the time constraints. I had made several requests to the Secretary of State's office to move the deadline that had been moved for the State House and the State Senate seats and all that, but they were not going to move today's deadline for the county stuff. And we were waiting on them for an answer with regard to the census block. So under that time constraint, the team not only worked extra hours on Friday, came in on Saturday on the kind of a festive weekend for the Southwest Ohio, were able to do everything and again, showed up today to complete the task, and they did exemplary work, and it's just unbelievable, that team that we have. The Secretary of State, there has been some other criteria, or rather, I'm saying other statements that have been made. The President of the Senate, if you're aware, made comments that they would do two primaries, split up the county, and then do a sole primary on other issues. I think it's quite clear that after hearing from boards of election directors, deputy directors, and all of us that are in this business, I would hope that, and I got good word on this, that the Senate President has heard that. However, at this current state, we are scheduled for the May primary. Our team is working hard to get that all set. We have PEOs. Our PEOs coordinators are getting volunteers. Those that are online and watching, if you want to participate in our system and become a polling election official, I encourage you to do that. We have deadlines coming up of voter registration. We are encouraging all of those that if you're not registered to vote, please be registered as soon as possible, so we're within the before that deadline.
What is the deadline?
It is April 4th, because early voting opens on April 5th for this scheduled election. So the timelines are incredibly tight right now, and you will have noticed we did not touch any of those districts that are still pending. So there's still a ton of work that our staff will have to do in order to pull off this May election.
I will talk, and I will end this portion on what we did. We did receive from the Secretary of State's office for the truly statewide, the governor's race, the auditor, treasurer, petitions. They're filed up there. They then send out if our county had any part petitions for that particular race. We received those part petitions. Our team evaluated that, and today they're now complying and sending them back. Just to note, there was two particular races to note in that, and there was an individual who was running for the U.S. Senate. That individual filed a petition, but on the same day, or at least on February 2nd, withdrew from the race. We noticed that through media, but the Secretary of State's office forwarded their petition, that individual's petition anyways, and did not provide to the county the notice of withdrawal. So what we did, as required, we would still have to check those petitions and give credit to the voters that signed for those petitions. So we did do that at this point. We then, there's a way on the computer that we give them notice of how many signatures we have. They have withdrawn that name from that list, so we couldn't do it within the system. So we sent it up manually with them, that we had checked those. There's one other individual, and last name I believe is Maras, and that individual is running for the Secretary of State's office. What we did, and the staff, the executive staff agreed that individual's petitions were invalid on face. There was no candidacy. Declaration of candidacy for that particular thing. And in addition, the only sheets that were sent to us was page 2 of 2. There was no signature. There was many other problems with that.
Each part petition was just fully incomplete.
Yeah, each and every part petition. So we had no ability to check those. So we returned that to the Secretary of State as all part petitions were invalid. We'll get further instructions if they want us to proceed on that. But I wanted to touch on those two particular ones about the statewide. The rest of the statewide, we verified the appropriate signatures and sent that back to the Secretary of State.
Now, question, will the people who were certified to run as Democratic Central Committees be notified that their signatures, that their ballot to be on the ballot? Yeah, ballot to be on the ballot.
Well,
okay, yeah.
with the State Central Committee seats, we we have gone through and initially verified, but we've not presented them to you to certify, because at this point, with regards to the House and the Senate, we don't know their district.
County Central. We're asking about county.
Oh, were you asking about
Are we
county?
gonna notify people that they qualify for the ballot? I don't believe
Yeah.
that.
You said state.
Did I say state?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
didn't
okay,
mean
I'm sorry.
state, I meant the Central, Democratic Central Committee.
Montgomery County.
Montgomery County.
We will notify, yeah, I believe we notify,
Do we notify
well,
candidates?
it'll be up on the website.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
once
here's-
we get our system up and running,
Yes.
we'll, on the website, there is a thing that
Yes.
we will indicate that it's certified candidates for the Montgomery County Central Committee seats, and that'll be a notification. There will not be a direct mailing to them.
Okay,
If
but
that
that-
is your
that's what I was
question.
asking, was there gonna be a direct mailing to them?
No,
We will update the reports online. The reports that go online have a bunch of information, including when the petitions were returned to us and whether or not they were certified by the board. Going forth after this meeting, anybody who is certified will stay online. Anybody who is found to be invalid will be removed from those lists because it's no longer pending.
Okay, and the state reps and the state senates don't have to file until what, March? As it stands now?
as it stands now, they have, well, yes, I do believe that the date is March 9th.
Just
March 2nd, isn't it?
March
No, that's the second, March 4th is the
March 4th
congressional.
to file, March 9th for us to certify
Okay.
For Congress.
for all of them. I actually
all
pulled up
of
this
them.
directive on purpose because I
Sorry,
assumed that this
it's-
would come up.
But let me re-ask your question so we can make sure it's clear.
Okay, re-ask my question. Thank you, Director. Re-ask my question. so
Yes,
we can
please
make it
re-ask your
clear.
question so I can
Okay.
get the directive. They're, March 9th, they're required.
The date range.
The only date that has been amended in, okay. And I'll read this right from Directive 2022-03, under the first section, 2022 primary election deadlines. Pursuant to House Bill 93, the 2022 primary election filing deadline remains February 2nd for all candidates other than those for the U.S. House, effective immediately. Section 4A of House Bill 93 makes the filing deadline for declaration of candidacy and petition or declaration of intent to be a write-in candidate for the U.S. House no later than 4 p.m. on March 4th to the most populous county board of elections. House Bill 93 also permits the Secretary of State to adjust deadlines pertaining to the administration of the May 3rd primary election, except for the following: the deadline to file or declare candidacy and a petition, or declare intent to write for a write-in candidate. The deadline to certify a ballot issue or question to the election officials, or to file a petition with the election officials to place a question or issue on the ballot at the May 3rd, 2022 primary election or special election on that date. The UVA deadlines and the UOCAVA deadline, the deadline that under Ohio law falls on or after April 3rd. The certification and protest deadline for candidates' offices of the United States House of Representatives, the Ohio House of Representatives, Ohio Senate, and state central committees of the political party shall be as follows. Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, the most populous county board of elections or the board of elections must certify the validity and sufficiency of partisan candidate petitions and provide the names of certified candidates to the less populous county boards of elections in that district. Friday, March 11th, 2022, protest for partisan candidates for U.S. House, Ohio Senate, and state central committees of political parties, including write-in candidates, must be filed with the most populous county by 4 p.m. Pending the outcome of the ongoing litigation above, the Secretary may establish or amend other deadlines and dates related to the administration of the May 3rd, 2022 primary election.
So for,
So the petition deadline has passed, if you are filing those, but it's subject to change, if
Okay, so
they,
you're filing for state rep or state senate,
or state central committee,
not state central committee, state rep or
Mhm.
state senate.
mhm.
That was due in February.
February 2nd.
But because we don't have a map, we can't check the petitions, and we are required.
That's why they haven't come before us yet.
They,
Correct.
right, and so they must come before you on or before March 9th. So we'll have to have a meeting on or before March 9th, at which point we should have maps. That is the current timeline as we understand it.
Because our next meeting is scheduled March the 15th.
Please stand by.
Correct.
But, as the director alluded to, there are lots of conversations happening in Columbus and we don't yet have maps.
But I know that at this point, May 3rd is the scheduled primary. And we will continue, this office will continue to move forward as if that is happening. We will continue to follow any of the directives from the Secretary of State, as well as any other statutory guidelines we are responsible for.
Any questions?
So I guess would it behoove us to move that March 15th meeting up?
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yes, we do have, there are a couple dates on that calendar that we previously provided, and we do need to change a couple of those dates. I know one of the dates we just didn't realize, because it was so far off. We had scheduled to be working on Thanksgiving, so we would ask to change that date. But if it is the pleasure of the board to make the March 15th or add, I wouldn't necessarily take the March 15th off, because it may have some other guidelines with regards to the U.S. House of Representatives seat. If you would like to add a meeting to the calendar, which would be for March 9th, that is, it's a Wednesday, it's your prerogative to set the date and time. I would ask that you need to at least set it on the 9th, if not earlier, but I would probably do that.
What's gonna help you best?
The 9th. But that also has to fit your guys' schedule.
You can't. Why? Okay, you got something else to do. Okay, so you can't do the 9th.
I could do the 8th.
You can do the 8th, can you do the 10th?
Can't do the 10th.
10th afterwards.
Deadline's
Oh, that's
tonight.
right, can you do the 8th?
Yes.
You can do the 8th. What, remember Ramson?
I'm all good on the 8th. Shall we do 8th at 8 or 8 to 9 or what?
8th?
I can do the 8th.
How do we do later in the day?
Is it
1
possible,
o'clock on the 8th.
we would ask, if you're gonna do the 8th, if we could do it again at 3 p.m.? Because that helps us with whatever
You have most of the day. to-
newest guidelines and directives that we may receive
Whatever
up
the
to
day.
that point.
Whatever the new administrative challenges will be. The
Okay,
extra hours are
so,
helpful.
so now it is my understanding then that we're gonna do March the 8th around 3 p.m., 3. But we're gonna still maintain the March 15th meeting as well.
Is the motion to add, are we adding a meeting or are we modifying the existing?
No, we're
meeting?
adding.
We're adding.
Adding a meeting.
We're adding.
Well, in that case, I would move to add a meeting, a regular meeting of the Montgomery County Board of Elections to, on March 8th, 2022 at 3 p.m.
A second.
Been properly moved and second to add Montgomery County Board of Elections meeting March the 8th at 3 p.m. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. But we're still maintaining, as stated previously, the March 15th meeting at 8:30.
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you for doing that, so we can be in compliance with all the rules and regulations that we're under stress. So we understand your schedules are important, but, as you always say, this is this is very important work for our citizens, so I appreciate that. With that, unless the deputy director has any additional information on elections or redistricting, we'll turn it back to
Thank you.
the board.
Board members, do you have any comments?
First.
Given the length of the meeting, I'm going to say
Member Rosso.
Madam Chair, the only thing I have to say is Happy Valentine's Day to you and to Sarah. And I have nothing else to add.
But
Oh, aw,
Thank you, sir.
oh, you warmed my heart, thank you. Member Hatcher?
I would only say thank you to the staff, because as we've had extraordinary circumstance after extraordinary circumstance, it hasn't stopped yet, I guess, and right up till today, checking petition signatures, so thank you.
I ditto that. At this time, are there any public comments? We'll start with the League of Women Voters.
Not tonight.
Okay.
Except for the directory of public officials will be coming out March 15th, so we'll be getting that out. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well.
David Israedi, 113 Bonner Street. I've been in this room many times. I've had many discussions with board members, and I have had a pretty good relationship working with Board of Election staff over the years. As you may or may not be aware, I filed a lawsuit today, and it has to do with the way the director and the deputy director respond to public records requests and the way you conduct your meetings in accordance with the Ohio Sunshine Laws. This is not an agenda, and I've brought this up multiple times before, that an agenda for a public body should give the public information so that they can see what you are going to discuss or what you're going to vote on. We can't read your minds. We can't guess at what you passed today when you passed a motion to approve current bills. The public has no idea of what money you spent. Case in point, I did a public records request mid-January asking for the RFP, the contract, and payments made to the former director of the Board of Elections, Mr. Steve Harsman, who this Board of Elections apparently hired to redraw all the precinct maps. I still do not have the answer for that, and it's been over a month. I understand that nobody elects you from the general public. You are placed in power by your respective political parties. This is a problem in the state of Ohio because whether you like it or not, there are more people who are not a member of either party that are registered voters than there are Democrats or Republicans. All those, as you call them, unclassified voters have no representation here, and that's why we have to expect better from you if either party wants to gain an advantage through fair and open voting, which again comes down to that's the most important thing that you do here. You try to instill faith that this organization can run an election and run it properly. So, I have brought this up before, and once again we see a problem. But if petitions are failing, blaming the candidates is not appropriate when you've got a 10% fail rate or a 5% fail rate. The petitions are badly worded, badly designed, and they are failing because they are inadequate. Just the fact that the paper size was set wrong for a petition that looks like it should fit on an 8.5 by 11, because it doesn't fit on a legal size, and those are two standard sizes in this country, is a fault of you and the Secretary of State. That should not be allowed to happen. And since graphology is not accepted in the state of Ohio or in the entire country as a legal standard, determining people's signature qualifications based on a signature there is nobody here that is qualified to do that. All petitions should have printed name and the signature. Printed name and a signature spot at a minimum to reduce the confusion. Because some people sign their name and it looks printed. Some people sign with an X. So if they just put their signature there, how do you tell one X from another X? So we really need to look at the petition design. Now, I imagine some of the response you got talking about the certification of these petitions and about how they had to work late and they could not provide them to me when I made a public records request on Friday of who you were going to certify and who you were not going to certify. And they're talking about their database. Well, I'm not a mortician like Lynn or Mr. Alsall. I build websites and deal with databases and deal with user interface for a living. And I can tell you that the cluster doc, that's with a D, in case you think I was swearing here, of this election, and the question of being able to look up online what precinct you are in now, what precinct you are in after the new precinct maps, is not a question of two different databases. It's a question of a column. An additional column in a database. That's all. You could have had both fields. Your precinct now, your precinct after X date, and they could have both been displayed on the voter lookup on the website. And on the precinct maps, again, one precinct map for pre, one precinct map for post. So there is no reason these things should have had to be not be accessible and easily available for candidates, other than we don't have competent people putting these things together. If we had competent people putting these things together a long time ago, we would have taken the county property records and cross-referenced them so that we actually had latitude and longitude, that we had geocoded every household, and your map making would be very simple. And when candidates are looking for the voter data, that they actually can get those geocodes. So a mobile device can say, huh, you're here right now at the corner of Bonner and Adams. 100 Bonner is in your precinct. And David lives there. We don't include that. So a lot of candidates spend a lot of money buying that data appended over and over for something that doesn't change. There are lots of things you could improve if you had put that request out publicly instead of hiring Steve Harsman without knowing us, because he's the guy that screwed it up in the first place, probably, because it hasn't been right for a long time. The issue used to have them enter in the database if somebody voted in person at a polling place, it would be a capital X. And if you voted absentee, it would be a lowercase x. Well, no, that's not how you do this. You know why? Because in a voter database, when you're searching it, it can't tell the difference between an uppercase character and a lowercase character. It just returns X. Therefore, the proper way is, did they vote? X. And a second column, did they vote in person or absentee? Separate columns, or person P, absentee A. That's how you do this. Needless to say, I hope that this board can make an improvement on their future agendas instead of doing the copy and paste. What you were running today was more akin to the Oscar Awards than it was to a public meeting, where you kept a secret from the public of who was going to be on the ballot or not being on the ballot. I hate to tell you folks, this ain't the Oscars. This is a public meeting of a public body concerning something that Americans put the highest amount of trust in, and yet you don't trust them with information in advance of your meeting. So, I hope you reconsider your actions, and I hope you understand that I'm not here to piss people off. I'm not here to make money, because it takes an awful lot of time for me to write a legal brief compared to what it would take Judge Blaine to write a legal brief. And I don't know what I'm doing, but we need clarity in the state of Ohio as to how these things are handled and held, and how agendas are constructed, and how the public is informed, and how people actually get on the ballots. Because rejecting people who want to participate in this process should be the last thing that this organization is involved in. There's an awful lot of Americans who feel left out of the process, and you shouldn't be a part of why they feel that way. I thank you for your time. I hope you listened. Unfortunately, we will see you in court, but hopefully in the end, the voters of Montgomery County get better candidates, fairer elections, better informed voters, and we have open, honest, transparent government. Can I answer any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next meeting will be March the 8th at 3 p.m. and then following that, scheduled meeting will be March the 15th, 2022 at 8:30 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to adjourn this Montgomery County Board of Elections meeting February the 14th, 2022. Happy Valentine's Day. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries.
Good night, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Council. Yeah.